shouldn't have gone outside. It is July the 17th, 2021. It is 7:30 a.m. in the morning, and of course, I am reaching out to you this morning to share an experience that I just had. Let me get right into it. The time that this happened was somewhere around 5 something in the morning, and as always, I was up working on different things, practicing my Spanish, working on different projects. And around 5:10, 5:15 a.m. or so in the morning, I decided to lie down and shut my eyes. For those of you who are interested, I had on storm sounds as usual. This time, more of a tropical storm kind of vibe with thunder and things like that, which was and always is very, 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 very relaxing to me. Now, as I shut my eyes, it took about, I'd say 15 or so minutes before I arrived into that middle space. But this time, guys, it was such a different experience. On my previous Beyond Body experience, I talked about experiencing being on a train or being on top of a train. I remember the railroad tracks and things like that. It makes me think that in previous experiences that it may have been more like I was riding on a train, whether it was going upwards or going to the side or turning or doing whatever. That motion that I feel is more train-like. It's more like I'm on railroad tracks, even though I do feel as if I am going upwards or going downwards or whatever. This time, guys, a force literally lifted me out of bed. At least that's what it felt like. And it was an amazing, amazing experience. I have flown before, and I've talked about flying before in astral projection and things like that, but this was somehow different. I felt suddenly lighter than air, and I was in motion, moving around, going this way, going that way, gliding maybe around my apartment. Who knows? I know I was high in the air, and it was such a glorious, glorious feeling, and I was laughing, and I just had a great old time as I was doing this. Whatever force had lifted me out of bed and was flying me around, it was just great. It was just such a cool feeling. And maybe the whole experience could have been like this, but I decided to go ahead and basically go to the ground and land on my feet. So I did that, but I was still in darkness. And by the way, when I was flying around, that was also in darkness when I was flying around. But as I walked, the darkness began to lift. And suddenly I saw that I was in another version of my apartment. Now, it usually takes me a few moments to kind of basically convince myself that I've actually gone somewhere. It takes a second because everything looks similar to me and it feels like I'm in a very familiar, similar place, with things being off slightly, maybe the place being bigger or whatever. In this case, there was a picture in the hallway because I was walking around, and one of the first things I saw was this picture. It was in the hallway. Number one, I really don't have a hallway in my apartment. My apartment's really small, more like a single for one person. So in this version of my apartment, there was a hallway and there was this picture. If you can think of a picture you would see in a restaurant, okay? So sometimes in restaurants, you'll see pictures of the food. That's what this looked like. This looked like a picture of a solid maybe, but it was dark. It was so dark I could barely see it. And I remember I was looking at the picture and I was like, okay, for whatever reason, I am curious to see what that picture is. I saw a light switch, so I flipped it on. When I flipped on the light switch, it seemed to work, but there was still not sufficient light for me to be able to see what that picture was. Very strange. In fact, when I flipped the light on, only a sliver of light came out. The lighting, for whatever reason, in this specific reality was different. Things remained dark for the most part, even with the light on. I thought that was quite strange. I decided in that moment, because I saw that there was a door, I was like, okay, great. There's a door. I can go outside. So I opened the door. When I opened the door, a second door was there. Now, I've experienced this whole second door thing before, and it has been a very, very frustrating thing for me. You know, I open a door and then a second door, and then I see a third door, and I keep opening doors, and there's just no way to leave. Now, it's so interesting. Side note here, my mom, when I've told my mom about this, she said that maybe this means that there's some reason that you shouldn't go outside. I think we should all listen to our mothers because they're always right. I just have to tell you this right now before I go any further in the story. I should have listened to my mother, and I should have seen that this is a kind of warning, and we'll take it that way from now on. When I saw the second door, I thought I might as well try and open the second door. I did, and when I did, voila, I could go outside. I thought, okay, great. There were only 2 doors to go through, so now I can go outside. I went outside, and it was just as dark outside as it was on the inside. I was in an apartment complex, I think, of some sort. And the second I arrived outside, I knew that I'd made a mistake because I saw what I perceived to be. Now, just because I perceived this to be the way it was doesn't mean that this was the case, but I saw what I perceived to be a mob of people. And there was a man, I think, on the ground, and it looked like the man had been beaten up. I wasn't sure. Also, I think that it was raining, but I can't be 100% sure of that as well. There was just this feeling, this sense of dread and darkness, and it just wasn't a good situation. Now, as soon as I stepped out, this mob of people looked up at me. And we made a very brief eye contact with each other, and then they started coming toward me. A split second later, I heard a sound come from the apartment. There was a noise. Someone had opened a door in the apartment, and was coming in, and I saw a glimpse of that. And it was another, I think, group of people. So I decided to take my chances with the group outside that I was seeing. So I came the rest of the way outside, and this group, again, they seemed to be coming toward me and coming after me. So in that moment, right before they got to me, I decided, okay, well, let me, I hope I can fly in this reality. And I've talked before, in the beyond body, I'm not always able to fly. It depends on the laws of that particular universe or reality. It all depends. Thankfully, in this place, I was able to fly. And in that moment, I lifted straight up into the air. I jumped and I lifted straight up into the air. I must have gone maybe 40, maybe 50 feet into the air. I didn't go really, really that high. And they stopped and they were looking up at me. By the way, I didn't get the feeling that they were impressed that I could fly when I looked down. I really did not get that sense. And I thought, you know what? This is not a good situation. I need to get out of this situation. So in the air, floating there, hovering, I thought to myself, I want to be back. And suddenly, within moments, I was back. Opened my eyes here, and immediately, or within a certain amount of time, I usually write my experiences down, and then I start to record the video. So that is what happened. But again, extremely important to take these situations as learning experiences. I'm not shaken up by it because, I can take care of myself out there, and I was able to do what I had to do to leave because it didn't look like this was a very pleasant place. That's perfectly fine. But I need to look at the warning signs, and I know that my guides and others around me, when they show me things like that, are trying to warn me this might not be the best place to go out into. Anyway, that was my experience. Thank you so much for coming on another journey with me. And until next time, take care.